Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to cover exactly what's new in Claude Code 2.1.215. Now, at first glance, you might see that minor version bump and think, oh, it's probably just a few bug fixes, right? Actually, scratch that. This update fundamentally changes who is in the driver's seat of your development environment. We're going to look really closely at a major shift in how Claude Code handles its built-in skills, and exactly why Anthropic is actively choosing to hand a very specific steering wheel back to you, the developer. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of the update, I really want you to think about the friction you experience when an AI assistant unexpectedly takes the wheel. Because we have all been there, right? You're deep in the zone, you're crafting a brilliant solution, and suddenly, bam, your tool decides it's the absolute perfect time to run a diagnostic or check your work without you even asking. It brings up a really important question for modern development. As our tools get smarter and smarter, who should really be driving processes like code review? Which brings us to Section 1, the 2.1.215 update, focusing on manual control. So just as a quick refresher, let's look at the two tools at the very center of this update, /verify and /code review. These are two incredibly powerful built-in skills designed to proactively check your work. Basically, they're built to act as a second pair of eyes, scanning for errors, suggesting improvements, and just making sure your code is structurally sound. They're absolutely fantastic features, but the way they're triggered, well, that's what has just undergone a massive transformation. This comparison really hits the nail on the head regarding the core shift. We're moving away from a world, like in previous versions, where Claude could just decide to run these skills entirely on its own during a session, just automatically, without you explicitly asking. Now in version 2.1.215, that automatic behavior, it's completely gone. It requires a manual user command. You literally have to physically type out the command for it to happen. It is a strict manual opt-in model now. Let's move to Section 2, the double-edged sword and the cost of autonomy. Now, you might be asking yourself, wait, why remove an automatic feature? Doesn't AI inherently mean we want things done for us? Well, it turns out AI autonomy has some pretty hidden costs. Automatic behavior in a coding assistant can genuinely be a double-edged sword. Sure, it feels super helpful when Claude proactively checks their work, but look at the flip side here. Unexpected actions drain your precious time because you have to sit and wait for a process you didn't even initiate. They burn through your tokens, which, let's face it, is a very real resource constraint. And perhaps most importantly, they totally shatter your flow state. When you're intentionally managing a complex chain of thought, the absolute last thing you need is your assistant interrupting you with an unprompted code review. So the absolutely crucial point here is that by disabling that automatic trigger, Claude now waits for your signal. Anthropic is basically looking at those hidden costs and deciding, you know what, the developer's intent matters way more than the AI's proactivity. By making these features strictly opt-in, they are handing the decision right back to you. You decide when a verification pass is actually warranted. You decide when you're ready for a code review. The assistant goes back to actually assisting rather than directing the whole show. Let's dive into Section 3, taking back control, and how to adapt your workflow. Okay, so anytime a tool changes its behavior, we obviously have to adapt our workflows a bit. First up, step 1, recognize that the skills themselves haven't actually changed. Verify still does exactly what it did before. Code review still does exactly what it did. You just need to deliberately type out the commands now. For step 2, if you're someone who absolutely loved how Claude ran these automatically, well, you're going to need to actively build those manual calls into your routine moving forward. But step 3 is the real payoff. You have total control. You can invoke them whenever you want, as many times as you want, without waiting around for Claude to decide the moment is right. And conversely, if you never wanted those automatic invocations in the first place, this update is a massive, quiet improvement for sure. It's just one less thing your AI does without being asked. Moving on to Section 4. Predictability by design. Let's step back for a second and look at how this micro-level update actually points to a much bigger macro-level shift in tool design. This quote captures the whole philosophy perfectly. When a tool does exactly what you tell it and nothing more, you can reason about its behavior and trust its outputs more easily. This is exactly what we call predictability by design. Moving these two specific skills to manual control is a very deliberate step toward building that trust. Because think about it, if an AI is constantly surprising you, even with the best intentions, it becomes a lot harder to trust it as a reliable partner. Predictability means you know exactly what inputs lead to what outputs, making your entire development process so much smoother to reason with. Now, adapting to these changes and truly mastering a predictable AI workflow, yeah, it takes a little bit of practice, but it ultimately puts you, the developer, right back in the driver's seat of your own codebase. Simply running the update command for Claude Code brings you directly into this new paradigm, ensuring that your coding environment behaves exactly, and I mean exactly, as you command it to. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this to ponder. In an era where we are constantly chasing hyper-autonomous AI that can just do everything for us, is total predictability actually the most advanced feature a tool can offer? Maybe the absolute smartest AI isn't the one that acts on its own, but the one that knows exactly when to sit quietly and wait for your command. Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy coding.